Switching gears now to Idaho, where accused Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell submitted an alibi, denying that she murdered her two children. Vallow Daybell claims she was somewhere else when they were killed in her brother's apartment. Now, she is due to go on trial in Idaho in April for the murders of her children, JJ and Tylee, who went missing in 2019. Now, her attorneys say Daybell Vallow is innocent of killing her children and should not be facing the death penalty. Court records also show her lawyers asked the court to allow her to communicate with her husband, Chad Daybell, who also faces conspiracy to commit murder charges without being recorded. Now, criminal defense attorney Kasia Early and Brian Silber are here with me this hour, and we're going to talk about this now. Kasia, what do you make of this submitted alibi claiming Vallow Daybell was somewhere else when her children were murdered?
Well, it's a defense, but I don't think that it's strong enough because, of course, the prosecution is going to point to her actions after her children went missing. I mean, she traveled. She did not have any sense of remorse or any sense of urgency to locate her missing children. So although she submitted this alibi, I don't think that it's strong enough. And also, it's been reported that the defense in this case will not utilize her mental state as a defense. And I believe that they're not utilizing it because they can't. I mean, when you're suffering from a mental illness, you have to undergo a mental evaluation. And I do believe that that mental evaluation was not beneficial to the defense, which is why they opted not to go that route. But I don't believe that this alibi, although it may have been submitted, I don't think it's sufficient. And it's just too much what happened after her children went missing, and that it's going to be an uphill battle for the defense.
Certainly could be a Hail Mary by the defense there. Now, Brian, how do you feel about Lori Vallow Daybell wanting to communicate with her husband, Chad Daybell? Is that unusual to you?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. But, you know, talking about that alibi just for a second, there's something very important that I think we need to pay attention to. This means she's probably going to testify. You know, very few instances of alibi defense are you able to rely on another witness. I guess someone could say they were with you, but I expect she'll probably take the stand to say she was wherever she was. And that's going to open the door to the question you just asked me about the communications with the husband, about where she was. It could end up, you know, really backfiring for her if she isn't prepared and doesn't have the right answers.
Well, Kasia, there's certainly always a danger when she is going to testify, isn't there?
There's always a danger when any defendant testifies, no matter how you prep your client, how long you prep your client, what you tell them what to say, what not to testify to. Once they get on the stand and direct examination is completed, then the prosecution gets up and conducts their cross-examination. And oftentimes, although the defendant believes that they can handle pressure, they'll know how to explain themselves, it's always up to the jury. They're analyzing every response, every hand motion, body expression, facial expression. So it can either hurt the defendant or it can explain and help the defendant in this case. But if she goes up there and testifies, she's going to be subject to cross-examination. And I do suspect and believe that the prosecution will ask her, specific details, especially what she did after her children went missing.
Well, Brian, what can we expect, of this trial in a few months? Do you think Vallow Daybell will be offered a plea by then?
No, I don't think she will. And the reason is you have two children victims. You know, this is a major, major prosecution. Anytime where you have a parental homicide of children, it takes a different tone. This is not your run-of-the-mill murder case, so to speak. And unless they have an evidentiary problem that maybe we're not aware of, you know, a witness is unable to testify or something happened, I don't expect there'll be a plea offer. This is something where the prosecution wants to go all the way with.
And Kasia, when we talk about Vallow Daybell, when we see her demeanor is very interesting. She doesn't seem like she's sorry. She doesn't feel like she's done anything. How is that going to be viewed?
Well, it depends. I mean, she's unpredictable. I mean, one moment she's stoic, and then the next moment she's blowing kisses. So I'm concerned, again, if she testifies, no matter how well the defense attorney prepares her, she may go off the radar. But there may be a possibility that the prosecution may, offer a plea in exchange for Lori, now that they have this notice of alibi, to testify against her husband. So we don't know at this moment. It depends. Maybe her testimony can strengthen the prosecution's case, and they will want her to testify in exchange for that. So it's possible that they may present a plea offer, but typically they do it well in advance of trial.
And Brian, when you talk about her husband, Chad Daybell, how key is he going to be in this case?
Well, it's yet to be seen. We need to see how the testimony unfolds. Her alleged alibi puts a whole new spin on this case. And, certainly if she testifies, it's going to make a big difference. But really, it's too early to call these things. We need to see how the trial unfolds, especially how maybe the prosecution will alter its strategy based on the fact that they're going to have to fight against an alibi witness, or an alibi defense, I should say.
Casey, how do you defend a client like Vallow Daybell?
Again, you poke holes in the state's case because you remind the jury that it's the state's burden alone. And then everything that the state brings out, you can definitely weaken that and show it to the jury. In this instance, with this alibi that she presented, is it cell phone data that she's presenting that shows that she was somewhere else? Or is it eyewitness testimony who can testify under oath and also be credible to the jury that, hey, she was with me all night, she wasn't there? I mean, if it's cell phone data, then, that's typically weak because someone could have their cell phone at one location and be at another location. But again, you attack the state's case in chief and you do it throughout trial. And this is where good cross-examination comes in with the state's witnesses. So I do suspect that the state will call their star witness before and a strong witness at the very end, and you continue to attack their credibility. Because again, the jury has to make the determination, what's the truth, what's the lie, and also what was the true motive to killing these beautiful children.
Well, on the other side, Brian, if you're the prosecutor, how would you try the case?
So my approach as a prosecutor was always to be a tour guide. I don't like when prosecutors get up and they scream and they yell. I feel like it's just an act, and juries can oftentimes see through that. A good prosecutor is doing nothing more than looking at a jury and saying, hey, we charged this guy with such and such crime, and here's the reasons why. This is the evidence we have. This witness told us X. We found this piece of evidence at the crime scene, this, that, and the other. And they're basically putting their hand on display. So I think if they take a very matter-of-fact approach, they'll have the greatest chances of success. And that's how I would try the case as a prosecutor.
Well, Casey, before we go, I do want to ask about the competency of her right now, because she was found not competent to stand trial, but then in the summer, she was found competent to stand trial.
And that's the purpose for reevaluation. Typically, when you're initially evaluated, you may be found incompetent to proceed. And there's a program or medication that's administered, and then you're reevaluated. So most likely, obviously, her competency has been restored. She's fit to stand trial. And that report was administered by a licensed clinician, psychologist, who was able to evaluate her. And based on that evaluation, they made that determination that she is competent. We don't know what medications she was on, what type of therapy she received, but we know she received the proper treatment and she's ready to stand trial.
All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you both so much for your analysis. Great job as always. That'll do it for us. I'm Michelle Yu. Keep it right here on Law and Crime, though. Much more trial coverage is ahead.